This is such a deeply personal question, and if you've been struggling with it, I really, really see you. Using embryo selection to avoid passing on a cancer gene is right in the middle. It's not an obvious yes, it's not an obvious no either. This makes it a really good illustration of all the difficulties associated with embryo selection as part of reproductive medicine. And I think this is going to have to be a slow ethics video. So grab coffee, tea, make yourself comfortable. There's going to be 2 chapters to this video, and each of them is going to require a little time. The first part is, I'm a physician and an ethicist. I teach in Switzerland, and Switzerland legalized pre-implantation diagnosis, so embryo selection as part of reproductive medicine, rather late. It's been almost 10 years only. And one of the reasons why it took a long time is that we had to find a solution to not give a list of diseases that made it justified, because this would have sent a completely wrong message to people already born with these diseases. You don't want to say that anyone should not have been born, because we are all here and equal people. Laws need to honor the equal value of everybody's life. So what Switzerland did instead is that the law stipulates that you're only allowed to use embryo selection if you have no other option to prevent the transmission of a severe disease. And severe is somewhat defined. It has to be incurable, and the symptoms have to start before you are aged 50. And then the question is, do cancer genes qualify under that definition? It was not clear initially, but then different hospitals set up committees to evaluate specific cases, and they started to share their case history. So what had they accepted, what had they not accepted? And as it turns out, some cases of cancer genes were allowed and have become part of the case history of this in Switzerland. Allowed, however, does not mean anyone ever has to use this approach. It means you can if you choose to. And this is a very important part of it, because this is what makes it not eugenics. Another part of what makes it not eugenics is the choice is actually a real choice, meaning that if you choose to not go through this process and you have a child and the child has the cancer gene, there are state subsidized programs for screening and prevention, and all of this is paid for by insurance. So it's not like a choice where you're being actively pushed towards only one option. That's important too. Now, part of the discussion in Switzerland was about whether or not having a cancer gene is an incurable disease, because in some cases you have screening, you have prevention, and you can get the risk of dying of this really low. Let's take as an example perhaps the most famous cancer gene, the BRCA1 mutation. If you do breast and ovarian cancer screening from age 25, if you do the surgery at the recommended ages, your risk goes way down. And here I think that hospitals that consider this to not be curable are correct. And here's why. Enter chapter 2. When I married my husband, I married into a family with the BRCA1 mutation. Some people are affected by the mutation directly, others are not. I'm not going to say who, obviously, but let's just say both experiences coexist within a family, which is the regular situation. And many different experiences of both having and not having the mutation also coexist. But to give a very brief summary, the biographical impact of carrying the mutation is not curable. Having to think about surgery at the recommended ages shortens the fertility window considerably. And even though you don't have to take that into account in your whole life planning, if you don't want to, it becomes an inevitable component of your life. Also, along with the mutation comes a multi-generational family history of being orphaned and parenting siblings. And let's just say that the awareness that this risk persists or the awareness that this risk no longer persists are two completely different life experiences. So yeah, medicine, surgery may be able to take out tissue, but we can't take out these experiences. We can't take out these biographical impacts. Choosing what to make of that is a deeply personal decision. And in my family, people have thought about this in both ways. It is completely understandable that some people will choose to go through the route of embryo selection. It is also completely understandable that some people will choose not to do so. And our societal responsibility is to make both choices possible and support parents, whichever one they make.